Hey guys, so today we are installing the rear pulley kit for the Yamaha Bolt. This drops you down to 65 teeth in the rear. To be able to install that, you also need a new belt. The belt is a 140 tooth belt instead of a 144, which is what comes on the stock. And then the pulley is, like I said, 65. The rear is typically 70 for the Bolt. So by dropping that number of teeth, you're probably going to be at around negative 800 RPMs in certain ranges and speeds and stuff like that. So up to 800 RPM difference. As far as what we're actually installing, because this is the real one. What we're actually installing today on this bike is a Raider pulley. Same general idea. This one's just 66 tooth. It's just what the guy who's here has. So we're going to do that just so that you guys know how to do an install. The tools you're going to need for this, I've got laid out here. It's kind of an exhaustive list. Hopefully it's everything you would need, but there's possibility there may be other parts you need. So do consider that. You'll need a 27 mil wrench, 22. You may also want those in sockets as well. You will also need a 17 millimeter and maybe a 17 mil socket. You may need, for this guy, you may actually need a long pry bar or an impact driver to get to use that, because it's a very, very tight nut that you're trying to get off. And then we've got a 14 mil and a 10 mil wrench, maybe a 12 actually, but we'll see. I can't remember exactly. And then you may or may not need like a little adapter, depending on the wrenches you have, depending on the size wrench you have. You'll also need a torque wrench. I highly suggest doing this with a torque wrench. If you don't have one, you should really own one. And additionally, you will likely only need a 5 millimeter Allen key. That should be all the Allen keys you need for this whole job. So we got our bike jacked up here on a little scissor jack. These little flat scissor jacks are really great. If you don't have one, I highly suggest it so you can work on your bike easily. We're going to pull the rear wheel off first to get started. Man, you need new tires. Okay, so we got a 22 on this side and a 27 on the other. You're just going to basically just wrench that guy down and just pull it off. And then once you get that off, you can pull that rear wheel. Your caliper is going to drop down and all that stuff. Our axle loosened up, and we're just going to pull this guy out. I find that using a wrench like this sometimes helps getting it pulled. Be careful with your axle. These are delicate, so you don't want to just toss them around. And then you roll your tire forward, get that belt off right there. Once the belt is off, you'll be able to reverse this out. Just be careful not to drop your caliper on the right-hand side. And you can drop it if you really want to, but you don't need to. Just hold it and drop it down slowly. And once you get that off, you'll be able to turn this a little sideways to get it out from under the bike. And once we're here, we're going to put something underneath the rotor so we don't scratch it up. And so at this point, you'll have to get a large torque here to try to get these guys off, which is kind of the hardest part. So you just go around and you loosen all these guys, and then once you have that off, we'll be able to put on our new pulley. So we got all our bolts off here, all the 17 mils. We pull off this pulley. The pulley does have a bunch of washers there. This is the part we're getting rid of and replacing. The Raider pulley is a nice little fit. It's very similar looking. If you buy our kit from us, it'll look a little different. It's going to look like that. It's still a great looking pulley either way. And then we get this guy on here. Do take this moment to check that your studs are solid. Had an issue on mine where the studs actually started coming out, but these looked pretty good. They should have been put in with like basically permanent Loctite, so they should be very solid. You drop this guy on there. Once you have that in place, you can put on your washers and screw those down. Do note that the Dyna pulley version, or not Dyna, but the pulley version that we sell, it does have a washer here. If yours does not have the washer already permanently in place like this one does, then do put that in and put it so that the flange side is down. So when you mount it up, it's actually jammed between there. So that's how that one will go. And that's it. You just got to get these all on and torque them all down. Make sure to follow the proper torque spec. So we got our adapter on there. These need to go to 69 foot-pounds. Even a simple torque wrench like this, which I got for like 10 bucks, works great. Don't cheap out. Just go ahead and run over to your AutoZone and get one. You can also take this whole thing off and put it on a bench vise to do it. I personally just like to do it on the cush drive here. Makes it a little easier. You don't have to fool around with stuff or mount it up anywhere. So as you get each one to 69 foot-pounds, you'll have to go back around and circle again and make sure they're 69 as well, because if you tighten up one, the others may start to come a little loose or not be as tight as they were initially. So I'm going to go back in that crisscross fashion one more time, make sure everything's at 69. Yeah, see that one needed more. Needs a little more as well. Back to the first one more time, and we're good. Next, we're going to take off our pulley cover. You'll need to take off the belt cover. This bike's not running a rear cover or a bottom belt cover. It just looks nicer. So yeah, these are all 5mm bolts across both the top and the bottom, as well as the pulley cover. This one does have an aftermarket cover that is running, instead of 4mm, it's running, or instead of 5, it's 4mm on here. You may, depending on, I haven't seen it on a stock pulley cover in a while, so I don't know for sure, but to get to this bolt and back it out, you may actually need to drop the kickstand or pull the kickstand sensor off. The kickstand sensor is here, so you could actually unbolt that and pull it off, and then you'd be able to get to that one. But that one bolt right down there is a little difficult to get to from here, so you may or may not have to pull that off with the stock stuff. So we got this pulley cover off here. We need to get this bottom mount for the shock off. So pretty simple, just a 17mm. So we'll just unbolt that. Once we get that unbolted, when we put this back on, remember it's 17 foot-pounds. Actually no, 22 foot-pounds and 17 for the top if you wanted to, if you need to redo the top. But Usually you can just get this one guy off, and once you get this guy off, which I'm having a little trouble because where's that wrench we had earlier? Oh, there it is. I'll use a ratchet, that'll be faster. So once you get that guy off, usually you can just kind of pop this guy off of here, like that, and then you'll be able to slide the belt through here and finagle it. And then now we've got everything disassembled that we actually need to disassemble. And from here, we'll just start putting on the new stuff, like the new belt. So we'll get this new belt slid through there, all mounted up, and we'll just start putting everything back together. So we got our belt mounted up back here, and we've gone ahead and pushed this back on. You're just going to add some Loctite for this stud here with your Loctite in place. Pop this guy in here. When you go to screw these on, just screw it hand tight with your fingers there, and then once you get that in place, you use your torque wrench, and the torque wrench needs to be like I said, 22 foot-pounds for this guy, which isn't a whole ton. Like, everyone kind of over tightens these and then you strip the stud on your bike. That's it. So it's really simple. If you over tighten that and you strip the stud that's actually attached to the swing arm, to properly fix it, you need a whole new swing arm. Don't fuck up. So we're gonna go ahead and put this back on. Understand the parts and how they go together. You do have a spacer here which can fall out. It falls out of a lot of guys' bikes when you're doing it, so be sure that that's popped in there properly. It's also one of the pieces that wants to separate when you're putting it together on that side. Same thing over here. You've got your whole cush drive system, which is all built up in here. Be sure that like this is all situated and sorted properly when this is put on. So that none of that stuff falls out, or the spacers or anything that's in there while you're doing it. So once that's all in place, you go ahead and roll your wheel in position. When you're putting this on, you have your adjusters. You'll want to back off these 12mm nuts here, and then in addition to backing those off, you'll back off the bolts. Do that on both sides so that you have enough play initially when you're putting this on. Go ahead and put those on each side. If your bikes are dirty enough like this one, they'll actually hold in place without you having much effort. If you got a really clean bike, they'll probably want to fall off while you're doing this. But roll this guy forward, get your belt positioned on top of here the way it's supposed to go. Go ahead and get that kind of positioned. You're going to want on this side over here, you're going to have to, and this is a little hard to see, but you're going to have to separate your brake pads. Make sure you got one pad on each side. Get that onto the rotor with the pads separated correctly, and slide that up. Once you have that in place, and actually you want to have the belt off for this. Once you have that in place, you can you'll have to lift the tire a little bit and get that onto here. Once that's on, slide it forward as far as you can go, and then you can put the belt back on. And I'm kind of just holding everything up with my legs here. And then I'm going to get the axle just slightly in here. We're going to put that down. Make sure that's forward. Try to line the axle up with the wheel there. I promise I'm making this look really easy. It's a pain in the ass. And then once you have that, I mean, you're pretty much started. Everything's going to stay in place. And it's just knocking this guy in. You can use a rubber mallet for this. I've got it pretty well lined up, so it went right through. Once you have that, you're just going to add your nut and washer on the right hand side. Screw those on. Then You don't want to torque those down, you just want to loosely tighten them up. And then the next thing is the adjusters. So you got to get the adjusters tightened down to the right position. You'll need your 10mm wrench as well as a 12mm wrench. The 10mm is for the rear one. You're getting that guy tightened up to the proper position. And this is this basically gives you the right spacing here for your belt tension. This is also, I guess, kind of a video on how to adjust your belt tension. But once you get your belt tension correct, you're going to want to be at 10 foot-pounds of pressure for your lower guide on your lower belt cover, which he does not have. But basically, it's 10 foot-pounds pushing up on this. Get out of my face. It's 10 foot-pounds pushing up, and it's really not supposed to move more than like maybe about an inch. If it moves any more than an inch at 10 foot-pounds, then it's too loose. But that is actually supposed to be measured when it's on the side stand, not when it's on a jack. So we actually have to tighten everything up, put it on the side stand, measure it, and then if it's off, we have to put it back up on the stand, loosen the axle nut, and then do the adjusters. I've got this in position. I feel pretty comfortable. Try to figure out where this is kind of centered up, you know, and then, you know, I've got this to where I feel like it's about 10-ish foot-pounds. It's going to be a little tighter than normal because, first of all, it's a brand new belt. Secondly, the distance between front and rear is actually shorter than on the stock belt. So because it's shorter, you actually want there to be a little more tension than typical. So a little over 10 foot-pounds, maybe 12 foot-pounds. But we can look at this line here. This little mark inside of this adjuster, wherever that's pointing, we need to make sure the opposite side is exactly the same spot. So this is at like 3 and like 5/8, you know, marks here. So 1, 2, 3 plus, you know, like 5/8 of a mark. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. You'll make sure that you got this kind of tightened into place with your 12mm. So you just take that 12mm and give that one little torque there just to make sure it's good. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And then additionally, we're going to tighten up that axle, but we don't tighten it completely because we're going to put it on the side stand. We're going to test everything, and then we're going to put it back on the jack, and we're going to do it. So again. we got this ruler, or not ruler, but measuring tape sat here so that we can see the distance and the pressure on this, the foot-pounds pressure on this pulley belt. So I'm going to get under here and I'm going to push up on this. Like I said, it's supposed to be about 10 foot-pounds is where we're supposed to be at no more than, actually really like a 1/2 inch is really what we're looking at. So at like a 1/2 inch at 10 foot-pounds, yeah, we're still within range and we're not too tight. So I feel like this is actually pretty good. If anything is a little tight, I might just loosen it just a tad, which is like a 1/4 turn on the adjusters, and then I'll crank down the axle nuts at that point. So I think I'm going to take it a 1/4 turn off. Of course, I'll check it after, but I think we'll be good. I've done enough of these that I'm pretty happy with it. But your bottom cover will actually have a spot right here that's got, get back dog, that's actually got some lines in it, and basically you just don't want to go outside of those lines. I have one here as an example, but if you don't go outside of those lines and you pushed it up with 10 pounds pressure, then you're good. That's how that works. But this is basically, you know, because I'm using a ruler, like a 1/2 inch is what we're looking for. And you can see on this guy here how it's got a 0 or a 10 there, and so basically when you press in, you want it to get to that 10, and that 10 foot-pounds, that's your measurement. Last step here, we got our adjusters in place. We made sure that all these are torqued down. The axle's the last thing to really tighten up. We had it like tightened up, but not like super tight, and we loosened it again to be able to adjust these adjusters. But now we're going to tighten this guy up. It's supposed to be, and if you want to come over here on this side, you'll see the issue. This is supposed to be tightened down to 110 foot-pounds, but to get a torque wrench in here is impossible because you got this lovely Bassani exhaust, which is blocking the way. So we'd have to pull the full exhaust system off to go full 110 foot-pounds with the torque wrench. So rather than do that, we're just going to do what we call a UGA, and we're going to do like a 3 UGA. 1, 2, 3 UGA. So that should get us there. I think that's good. But typically, just so you know, 110 foot-pounds is pretty damn tight. So don't leave this shit loose. It's got to be pretty damn tight. And we got through all that install. We got everything bolted up, took it on a test ride. Everything worked great. A lot of guys asked me, what's the real benefit of doing that rear pulley and what are you actually going to feel differently? In my opinion, of all the stuff I've done to my bike personally, I've done a lot of stuff. That is the best performance upgrade that I've gotten out of this bike of anything I've done. The reason being is that highway miles or highway speeds, like bike is not screaming. 70 miles per hour, around 70 to 75 is actually where I'll shift up for 5th gear. If you're shifting up at 70, 75 miles per hour at 5th gear, your RPMs drop around 2,500, 2,000, you know, like at that beginning of the shift. And then you've got plenty of space to go up and you don't feel like the bike is screaming when you're, you know, when you're throttling up to 85 miles per hour. At 95 miles per hour, the bike still doesn't feel like it's screaming. It doesn't really feel like it's really pushing it until 100-ish. But I go $1.05 all the time. Don't tell anybody, but you know, I go $1.05, $1.10. It's easy. It just goes. It cooks, and that's because of that rear pulley swap. My personal bike has a 66 rear and a 31 front, but doing just that 65 on the rear is going to be about equivalent to doing that 66 rear and the 31 front. So that's why we are offering that rear 65 tooth pulley kit, because that's really your best option price-wise, rather than say swap both the front and rear. It's too costly to do both. So rather than do both, you could just swap that rear for that 65 tooth and a 140 tooth belt, and you're pretty much done. Do consider though, when you do this swap, you do need to heel the speedometer, otherwise you're going to be racking up miles incorrectly. You're also going to be speeding most of the time, and you won't realize how fast you're going. We offer a couple products to do that. We've got a COSO speedometer, which is one option. A lot of guys do upgrade to a COSO. We always have these in stock. The COSO speedometer, what's great about it is it's got a tire percentage setting where you can adjust it, though you're only going to get so close on the COSO speedometer as far as like how accurate the speed is, because it's not super granular. If you want something a little more accurate, I really do suggest the 12 O'Clock Labs Speedo healer. It's called the Speedo DRD. We sell these and keep these in stock as well. That is super granular. You can really dial it down to the exact miles per hour that you want to like dial the bike into. So that's what I would suggest. I have on my bike personally, I've got both the COSO and I have the Speedo DRD installed inside here. The COSO, I just couldn't get dialed in enough. So in the end, I ended up changing, well, not changing, but I left the COSO, the setting it was on, and then I added a Speedo DRD to further dial it in, and now my speedometer is perfect. It's never off at all. So you will need one of those two items to dial it in. I do suggest the Speedo DRD. If you're just wanting calibration, get the Speedo DRD. If you really want all that functionality that's in the Koso, get the Koso, which is a great product. But just know that if you do get the Koso, it's not going to be perfect. If you want it perfect, you have to get the Speedo DRD in addition to it. So that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for watching the video. A little long-winded, but now you know how to install this kit. You understand what you get out of the kit. It's a great little performance package. It's really the only thing for the Bolt that's going to make it feel like it's really ready for the highway, in my opinion.